nau tolu ko ia ku nau mea mai I whatahanga ai forum ai koe whatahanga ni hono ni matolu e kautaki e Pasifiki pea I he taim tatau lava mai e pe mo ki nau tolu I he whatahanga ia koe whakawhia pea me he civil society pe koe kautaha civil ea Tonga o koe pe mo whakawhia te ki nau tolu I ngai whanua pe o Pasifiki ka koe proklama ko ia palareri ia pa mo proklama e forum ai ulo tonga whakahoko eni I he mala e maa maloa mutol ko yang mo wakai mai he radio koe mala e maa maloa kulau ia koe kolo ia o society civil a Tonga ulo tonga whakahoko atua ia ngahi proklaman e whakawai ni ania whitahine princesi la tufu I peka atu aho ia I ene pehe o ku whatou tatau pe ai ongo proklaman I he holo kunsalo te pe foki ki he whare mamataanga spoti ai ako maalunga Tonga I he tanoa I whao ne lua pe mo ngahi e ria kehe ko fotu he pureanga ke whakahoko ai whatahaanga koe ni pea I he time tatau hange koe ako ilo he Tonga kotoa mea e hau eiki whare hau o I whanua ai sea e whatahangani koe e pare mea Tonga ona po huakawa Meriku koe sea ia e whatahangani o ku koloa ia e pureanga pe mo e whanua hange koe ngahi talanoa ko whakaongo mai pia me he reo ki nau tolu e kau whewhine me kau tangata tauhi api me apina pia mok tolu ko tau pe he ot murina tau whanongoa he tau ngahi yongo na hiko mawhana ne pongpongi he tau re tio I he fitu taimi fitu pongpongi o aha ko tau pe whaonga tua e ngahi reo meri e pe mo he whanua ko hia ko ngahi yongo pe mo he whiawhia ko mau e Tonga na e mea whoke e ikmista o e whakatau aki pe mo e whalakalaka ekonomika ona po toke ta vriami waske la tu he tau ongo ane pongpongi ai koe konga koula ni ki Tonga pia I kai ngatai o ku koloha ia pia Tonga ko hia koe awhi mai ai whakatahanga kono ni matolu e kautaki o I Pasifiki pia I he ene pe he tau kaunga whamoni ko toa pe ai ririu hoko ke funga o e whanua pia mo e kakai I he lolo tongani ai tauhi ke toi maange hangi ko ia ko e poupou ke ka veinga o e potunga o e atakai pe mo e taki mamata ke to e tauhi e whanua pea ko ani afi ta whake ngahi talanoa na e tuku atu me he tau whare whamafola rea walu whitu poi ni ma e ma he tau ongo ai lawa ke mea tonu ai sekretari seniare o e pureanga whakatahataha United Nations pe pehe foki ki e sekretari seniare o e forum pe mo ki nau tolu e kautaki o Pasifiki ki he fui ke lahi na hoko ane afi pe lava ke nau whamoni iai ai tu tairiri a kakai o e whanua ki ngahi whatamaki whakai na tula pe a hene pehe nau na malawai ki hoko ai ngahi talanoa i prokalama ane po ia ngahi ofa pe me ngahi tokoni whahoko ke funga o e whanua ko ngahi talanoa ko ia ai ekmista fi whakatau aki pe mai whalakalaka i ekonomika ki ngahi nofoanga I Popua e pehe foki ki sopo tau whaahau I kolfoou I halamate alona pe mai ngahi accommodations ke he pe funga o whanua mahinog nau mea tonu ai e kautaki mo ki nau tolu e kau ho ekminista na tolu ngawe e ngahi pureanga I ngahi otomotu o Pasifiki lava ke nau wakai lirei ki heanga o e tau nofo I Tongani pia nau whamoni ko toa pe ki ai pia ki he ngahi kore tokoni pia mo e ngahi talanoa whelawei mo Tonga ko ni ko nau mea mai o mea tonu pe ki ai ka I he pongpongini o ki ai e whakawhi pia me he CEO pe foki ki kaungawe ko toa o e whakatau aki me whalakalaka ekonomika ke kakai o Tonga malawa le rei pe ke tau mamatai o kungofua pe ai o mai o mamatai he ngā weni o si ia te niti tua I he tawhaki whakahifo o e whare malama ke mo nofo pe me ai pia ka lava pe ai ki o wau no ko ni na lave ki ai e ki o wau no ko ni na lave ki ai ko e whanofo pe ha fe ai tahata hoko ki ai pe mo lotu pia ka lava lotu whahoko ai pe mo mea tatari hoko he mista ona poto ta bria muaske la tu pia ka lava pe ko ia e whahoko ai ki tau olunga ko fa fia be o na tol ko ta te fito te na tol ko na me mai I he forum pe mo na tol ka kai ke pe mo tonga ko to pe e afe mai I he pongpong ni kalama pe ta wolunga ia ko tau keresia ai ko ki o wa no pe ya o e pongpong ni pe kalama le va ai keresia e hoko to ai pe ya ki no ahia nga hinga o ko ni na kulave ki ai ka koe makatuunga ia o ngāwe o pongpongi ni. Ai koe ngāwe o pongpongi ni, ko hono whakaari atu, ai ngāhi ngāwe ko lava I he whanua. Ngāhi ngāwe koe ko lava I he whanua. Ai koe ngāhi businessi ki whaloto whanua, kawai ai niu taufua, ko mea e hau eki pia I lo ke kakai o whanua ko niu tau fua o whakari ari moia heni pia ki hono ngahi pia mohono teu o whao ia ki he mila pia tuku atu ke kakai o whanua aia koe whaunga ia o ku ngau aki I he pongpongi ni ia I heni pia moe kawatonga ano teu e kawatonga o hau ke no whao he mila pia hau eni ke tuunga ko hono palu kono palu ko kawa ko ke to ngao ya ki ya e hataha palu kawa sai pia hono mi sini ona o sai pia hono mi sini ona ke ngao aki e ko ngahi ngao ko ni I he anga mahe ni tau wakai kai ko ta tong I pe ko ngahi funky table mat funky wall unit ya pe he foki ke ngahi tapa I ngatu me ngahi ngawe ai kakai fefine ka koe ni tau to ngawe atu ke ngahi koloa whakaloto whanua ki to whakaeono pōniangi hange koe ngahi o kawa na tala noa ki ai koe ngahi whamatala koe ni o atu he pongpongi ni kotoa ngahi ngawe whahoko ngahi businessi ki I Tonga ni pia hoko ai pia mo ngahi whakatau aki whakaloto whanua pe pia te lava ke whahoko mai whewhakatawa ki whawaha pureanga ia tau wha wholau whoki ai ngahi potunga aue pa moki nau tolu ai kau pisinisi koe ni ai poupou aputa ai potunga aue nia poupou aputa ai potunga aue nia ki he whatongiani aki nau whake ngahi pare ke ngahi pisinisi ki I hono moi o ngahi fie mau ko ia ke lele pe lele hoko atu ai pe ngahi business ki I Tongani pe ai kai ngatai pe ngahi business ko ni ko tala noa ke nau ngahi ke taimina nau kamata ke ai o tau tala noa pe ke moi ai Tonga ka ala mai ngahi me ngawe whaka teknolosia mai whalangalaka ko me tua pure anga aku ni hange toe ha ke aki pe aku to tupulaki ai ngā weni pea I he ene pehe koe whakawheni ki he tonga kotoa te maulava o whakahoko ngahi businessi koe ni ka pau te maulava mai whai ha tala noa pea mo kau ngā weni pea I kai ngatai o ataa ki nau tolu koe ni I he ngahi teniti aia koe ki nau tolu pea ku nau whahoko ngā ue ke mau tala noa ki he tupuanga pea mo whaloto lahi ke ngahi ngā ue pea mo ngahi whatongia malawai o lele nau ngahi businessi pei kai ngatai ngahi whaunga na whakahoko ako no tokonia ki nau tolu e pure anga tokonia he ngahi sektoa tau taha pe foki he ngahi panke mo ngahi mauanga paanga ko toa pe ko tau inasiai ai ako whatongiani lele hoko atu me he ahoni ko a pongpongi aho ua valu ia ko aho toa pule lulu pe toki tapuni ni ki he pouri fo a falaite o fatonga yange ko foi konga mahui ngai ni ai fononga tu ko ni o na nga hinga we mahui nga pito ke mea e fefine mo tanga tai tonga ko tope ko e trade fair ko ni pe ko ki show ko no fa hoko malama le rege ke lava mai mama tai pe ke to fa ke foki ko ia ko kamata anga nga weni ka ko e fatongiani ko no fra vai ni pe ko no fra tai ni ke fra hoko a nga weni officiale a no fra vai a honi tata ki minister be pe mo fra fika de na tol ko ia ka o taki o pasifiki te na o ala me mai ki he nga o mahu inga ko ni pe kai nga tai ko nga weni foki ko nga o ai Tonga ai ko vakai ke nga te ni ti neongo te ke hu mai e kau e sia me kau muri o kau i he ngā weni mai no pe to e vave pe to le yangi ka ko te ke po ngā weni ke ngā wi te ai kakai o fonua ko hai ngā hi ngā wi ko te vakai atu ke fofonga kau fefine ko to lai ta te na to honi ko ngo matua ai kau ona ngā business ki ko ni ko ha ngo matua pe pe mo na ki i fa nau mahino ko ka hauia hona ki family ai ko falo to la hia ai trade fair ta wa fe wa fa me he potunga o tanak paanga pe foki ki he falala ka o ekonomika fe fa ta wa ki potunga fe fa ta wa ki me falala ka ko ya o ekonomika pe ai he ne pe he fe fia ke fa fe ia tu ki motolo ho e ki me ka yo fonua ko e nga weni si ni mea a hota nga hi family Tonga pe mo ke na tolu e o tu Tonga ni malama ke na o fa hoko ka mai fok me nga hi apiako wa ka hi fok a Panilolo Technical Institute na o lava mai mo ke na tolu he nga hi ai ko ke na tolu na lava cookie na lava tui pe na malava ke toko ni ai ko e talan lahi to lahi ta ya te na tolu ko nga ngau e fakatak mamata nga ngau e fakatak mamata ka wa accommodations pe mo nga service ke i he pa tenta ka wa fok pe mo nga hi farekai cooking ya o ni he na tolu chef i nga hi farekai lahi pe ko kolo fa ari ha ni ko na tui pe ko e falaka ia o nga business ikini tui a tangata tui mo fefine ai au fa to ko lava le pe e he lo tongani e he fa na tangata ke na o fa hoko ai tui pe ka wa ai a Panilolo Technical Institute i he whare ario nau ngā we i he houani. Nā kulawe whikane nai ki he ngā we whatak mamata pia mo i whaloto whanua abe. Ko hake mai whoki tonga tapuni ai teu ko ia o ngahi fofonga pia mo i ulu hair dressing o nau whare ari mo ia i he ahoni. Ai ako ngahi business eni o nau malawa lerei ke nau hoko atu ai ngahi whatongia whaloto whanuani. Nā motua pure anga e lava ke whahoko ai whakatau aki ko tau mu ai ai poto ngā weni. Whafufua whako e hawhi to tonu ai tahataha ka umahino peo ki tolo pe tau taimi ka i he taimi ta tau pe ki wakaiat pe ki loto whare ka te nau tolu ko ia pe me i toa pure anga malawa ke nau fia ke nau kaumai ke ngahi mea anga pe kai ngā taimi nau whakaamu ke nau wau tonu mai o wakai ko e moi anga e ni ai tonga i tonga ni ko e moi anga e ni ai tonga i tonga ni pea ia i pe mo ngahi business ko e tau whare ko e ngahi tau whare ko e ngahi business i ki au pito ia aia ko e ngahi business ko ni uka e ngahi business uka ke toi re sisita i he poto ngā oe ka nau tolo ure sisita pea whaia hono tokonia ke whakalaka ia ki nau tolu I he ngā ue no katoa. Whamafola whangatonu koe ni me he holo whamanatu ko kunsalo te I he pongpongini tatalelei tatali whiwhia ki mautolo hono katoa te mo laka mai tau inasi I he hauani. O mautolo koe mo wakai mai tau pesi Facebook ko tau polokalama koe ia ki he ahoni pepeke ki mautolo I he retio o tau inasi whata. Wakai hifo mautolo koe ia I he Facebook ko e te nitia ko ni ko e te niti tau taha pia a tau mosi he maloto ko tau mosi na ne kau he ngawe I he fua o e whonua pia ko ngā he ngawe ko ni ko ne whakahoko ko ne lava tā a ngā he tupenu whahoko mo ngā he design ki he ngā he teunga kaua e kofu pure taha a e whewhine pia mo e tangata Motor ko mo wakai lelei mai ki ai I he Facebook ko na ko tau mo siena pa mo na kula ve fuki ane nai ko ngai fatongia business I ki peheni ko lahi taha lava pia whakahoko I api lava pia whakahoko I api he ongo mātua pia popo ki ai pia mo e longa I whanau pia mo e family fok pia manau malama o whakangawe ai hani ihi ko nau ngahi kau ngā api o I kai koe family pia pehe foki ke ngā he maheni pia ku kau e potungau e whiwhakatau aki mo e potungau e whalakalaka I o ekonomika a hono poupoi pa mono tokonia si ngā he business ko ni Iyo, aya ko e modol ko ia I he modol ko ia mo wakai mahi tai mini he tau pesi Facebook ia ngā he te pile ko ni te ke maha fu whamatala lelei ki ai ka ko e ngā he kolo aena ka me ngā he ola ko nau o mai tau te whito ke whunga e whonua hange hanga I konga pia me he pā mo ngā whi ki he nganga ririu whiriri waka natula I tahi o seni ka pe foki ki he e koe ngahi poulu kono hiri hokolo I he te pire aia koe ola ia o ngahi whakatotolo pia mo ngahi mea kua hoko I he climate change aia koe I he lolotonga ni foki lotonga kei whahoko pe polokalama whanofo pe mo e amanaki pe e waweni pe hataimi ke kamata ia ngā weni aia ku ngahi kolo ke heke aia na e whahoko ane po ano talitari o kakai nau tolu ko ia nau I he wahe whanua I tonga tapu pena e whakawha pita ano whakaongo mai e he MC ia e whakafofo ngā pia mei kana pia whoki ki Serbia na okna I he kau mai ki he whakatahanga pia koe whakawhia ia koe ia koe talo e tau tupu hake I tongani mo tau whanongo he mo wakai I he ongo pia mo ngā hi talanoa ke heke kaku tau kau whakataha I ahoni koe te niti eni kua umai ki ai tau Facebooka ko mere palu Tonga aya ko mere ko taha ia kau whewhine ku nau ngā wei ai ngahi kolo a tuk whakaholo ku tau whanonga mai moia ai lālanga aya ko e lālanga ku nau kei tauhi mai pia ku hangi ha polokalama tokoni whakawhamiri ki ngahi lālanga ke he kune lava o fune lalanga ai ngahi kie ko ngahi kie hina tapi foke ngahi fala ngahi fihu na weni ke ngahi I style ke ko time foko ni lo tonga mafuri pe mo ea e tau wakai ki ai ko me ngahi fala pe ko ngahi kolo fa tonga ko ia I ngahi ka tonga ke ai tonga o ku lava lere ia ai mere o lalanga pe ne to tuka ki atu ai ko taha ia ngahi ngau e tupua o fonua pe ka ke lava ia ke more o ku tuku au mai ia tuk whakaholo mai I ngahi loto whare ko tui ko taha ia ngahi tau mua pe mo ngahi pou ko ni ai potonga ke whakatau aki mo whakalaka I ekonomika ika ingata pe I hono whalakalaka ekonomika I whonua ka aku kaua I hono whakatolonga o tau ngahi ngawe me yono aho ko wakai ni ki he lalanga ko kokaanga tau hiko ia ngahi ngawe whakamea a oku kei tuku whakaholo mai pe tau kei whakamalo ia whoki a hono tauhi Makai mai ki he ngahi teniti o kia ia teniti a langa whonua a whiwhine tonga langa whonua a whiwhine tonga koe ke puri peunga a kautahani ea koe kauene kautahana ki wholo mai ea kai ngatai koe pe me kau whiwhine kunau kei mati aki a hono pusi aki I mai ilo ki hono ngau aki kai ngata pe na ngau whakari ari motu aki whakatau atu kau nau tauhi ai a hono lalanga ko tau wakai ko ia ki he ngai whonua I Asia ai na hanga lalanga whala lalanga pe ngahi misini pia koe whala ia lau ngeau I he aho ko tau wakai ko ia kono ngau aki koe ngahi misini ngau ake koe whala ia me iofi ia I he te au ki he wange au tupu I he aho ko tau lalanga ko ia a tonga ni oku me osia wike taha ki he wike ua ai whanonga no lalanga I oha whala oku peispe me lahi ko ia koe whala ko ia ngau aki ka I he taimi tatau oku pou pe mo poto ngau me whakatau aki mo whalakalaka I o ekonomika ki hono tauhi o tau ngahi koloa tuk whaholo ai koe tahani ngahi koloa tuk whaholo ai tonga na malawa ia he whatahangani ke hua toa I pe ia ki he toa pure anga hange koe ku osi tautou whakahoko mai he potu ngā weni ai ngahi whatongiani ka koe talanoa ane pongpongi he mea ki minista Filawei pia mo lelei ki he kakai o whanua whalungfua ai awhi mai ai forum ki Tongani makai at ki te niti ko ni ko whainga art creations ko taha whako ni o kau tangata whainga anu hanga o pusaki mai ai tātong tongi ai kunau ki tauhi mai ai tātong tongi I he ngau aki pea ho nau ni ma nau tano ani nai ki hono ririu ko ia he kau Asia mo nau tau toi ngai puri anga toi malo hiange pe toi matau tau ange nau whakau kau ki hono o atu koe tau ngai koloa koe tātong tongi o ngau aki pea ni ma o kau tangatani ki fo I tutu pe mo nau ha mala toko ni kai ngahi mi mea ngau whakai ono poni kau ke menau ngahi mea ngawe whakai ono poni ke toi waweangi a hono ngawe I ka I he NPH o ku wau mai ni ki Tongani ko wakai at ki he su ko ni ko siripa ko ki flip flop o ku ngahi pe me he papa ngahi pe me he papa ka ko ngahi koloa fu ko ni ko ngahi koloa teu pa ngahi koloa ko ia ko ngahi koloa ke tauhi tuk whakaholo pia hauka ko ha souvenir nau tolu koe ko nau wholau mai me tua pure anga ai aku osi mau katoa ai ngahi ngoa au mga nau ko ni kia kau folau pe me to pureanga tau ke tani pe I he lolotongani ka I taim tatau pe ko wakai atu ko osi ngau e mai kau mori to lahia ki o faita I mo fai ki koloa nga he koloa pe a koutu pe o ko wa foi ka kai to lahi na tu tamai na wakai ki hono fa ko ia o nga he kato nga fu kato la lahi hanga nga fu taspini fa koloa nai heni pe he kuohiri nai heni pe he kuohiri no ngawe aki tu aniu ono ngahi aki ngahi I poulu I peito wa upe ki ngahi loto fare fa anga vala ngahi aki pe lo akau pe mo tu aniu pe heni pe he to fa fo fange ngahi koloa ni ono te ko aki ahoni ya tau famalo ko tabe ka ting nau tolong nau lo tolahi mo lo toa ke frahoka ngahi o wau mau inga ko ni I hono pusi aki mai ngahi ilo pa ngahi ngawe o ko hirina o wanga foki ngahi ngawe famea a famatala mai ai ngahi to tangata pe mo nau tolu ko ia ko nau fraongo ai nga wen ai ko to tangata no tolu wen hingo ai pare ko ni ka mahino ko hoko se ni mai nga we o tu pe ia nga famatala lele pe mo nga he talanoa ka te nau tolu ko ni pe mo ke mau inga na fraholoni pe me nau fanga kui o a umayeni ki ahoni nau ke tau hipe ai koe mawanga paanga koe mawanga moui pe kai ngatai nau te mana tu ofai ke ngahi ngau o nau whanga kui koe moui ai hoko ia koe mawanga se niti pe kai ngata ia te nau tolu pe o toe lave to ai nau tolu pe me ngahi kau ngā api nau ngahi maheni nau ngau ai pe mawai mo nau se niti I time tatau pe to falahi ai pe mo nau ilo fama fola fa tonu ni pe me he holo famanatu ko kun salote holo famanatu kun salote ai fama fola fa tonu atu ye tau pe si Facebook Broadcom FM 87.5 podcasting ke tau radio Walfit point 5 FM ai mau inga ngawe a Tonga I he ahoni ngawe ngai business iki ke ngai talanoa ko ia I he mala o ako he kai ki tau ngawe office ko to ape he kai ki tau ngawe framafola radio mo live ko to ape ka te tau ngawe he ngai mala ke pe ko ngai business ko ni ko ngai business ke pe malawa ke ngawe ipe ko pe nei apina malawa ke ngawe whakakulupu te ke malawa ke ngawe whakakolo I he ngawe ni pia koe ngawe whakafonua te maulawa whepopo waki ai pia moe potu ngawe whakatau waki moe whalakalaka o ekonomika koe wakai koe ki he mahu inga potu ngawe whakatau waki pia moe whalakalaka ekonomika o ku hoko nau whakaai pia mono teke ko ia kau whewhine kau mai kau tangata nau whahoko ngahi ngā weni ke hoko ia I whoke ai tō tahai I he whakipare whakamui ko manatu ki ai I he mahina epereri o e tauni ko e ngāwe ai poto ngā weni na nau whake ngahi pare he ngahi business iki Pena tō tahai nai ngāwe whakapure anga. Tō tahani nai ngāwe whakapure anga pena lelei apu ito ne tūngā wāhenga. Ka koe ne whakamatala na ne hoko te ngāwe a e ne whine eiki. Pia koe ngāwe koe ne whine eiki na e hoko ia koe mōi anga. Maka iat ke te niti koe ni o ku i heni ka inga pa mei niwa toktafu. ngene kai nga me niu top tapu pe akure aki ai nima o niu top tapu kono ngawe iko ia o enau kie pe aku toi ke ya me pe na hanga to ngahi ai la kie o ku hange pe ia hatu pe nu hine hina e ko si mawa enau fefine ko si teu i whakatonga pure oto teunga tawolunga whakatonga ya me kau tangata Pemato nga si kai nga o ma atu be me he taulanga pasibulangi funga moi helu pe foki ki he maka memisi moi vai ko utu fekitua moi apiko Afrika kage ko kai nga ini I he te nit ko ni ya moi famanatu mai a enau to fai tahangi ko ko nau ko api ko ni I valolo ai nau o si mau mari ai pia hoka mo nau ngahi fatongia ke o kawai ai lalanga o nau teu au pito nau hu mai o kau I he ngā weni ko ni ko unu hake tau tai mia tau tolo hoko to tolu ni ai hango fulu mata ha ka I he tai tau pe tau ke frango pe ko ha talanoa e aho ni ka ko no frava ko ia nga anga o e pongpongi ni ko tuyo ko e mga tunga ni me tek nau tolu ko ia I he fatahanga ka utaki Pasifiki nau to fainga mari ke nau me mai nau me mai ke fai ha mea tonu ki he ngawe ai kau fefine au mai kau tangata pe mo nau tolu I he pure anga pe mo fonua to e famanato pe he tau fama fola pongpong ini ai ngawe ni ko lama ko ia no fakava ke ngawe aki ai ngawe ni no fakava faka ofisiale ya kalama pe ko ia hoko to pe ia me he I aho ni hoa e fiafi ko tui pe lava ke toki tāpuni ki he wha ai fiafi ko a pongpongi e whakahoko ia e he whakawa ai holo whamanat ko kunsalo te e hoto tonu ai hiwa pongpongi ki he nima ai fiafi hiwa pongpongi ki he nima ai fiafi pea koe aho toa pure lulu aho wahiwa e ako sini e whakawa pea whakaata atu ai holo famanat kunsalo te taimi hiwa pongpongi ki he nima fiafi a whalaite ka tolno ai
Iri o wange ta flauta taimi ho ta tonu o siniti taha me he tolu Rau kloseni ki Avery set ki he whataha ko ia o forum ka ko e soft opening in the ceremonial program o Tonga Trade Fair kage tau kloseni ki Avery set
that when any disasters hit our countries, they are able to withstand some of these forces, although we can't predict, but it helped to our resilience so that we continue with education in schools and also providing healthcare services and other essential services while things are recovering from any disasters, as we are all prone for. But transformative is make sure that we have infrastructure in place and also according to a standard that we'll be able to continue providing essential services during those times.
Malo lele everyone and hello, talofa lava. Welcome to Tonga. My name is Christy Langilangi. I am a high school teacher teaching at Tonga High School. We are here at the Tonga High School Stadium Complex at the grand opening. This stadium will be used for different multi-purpose activities for sports, not only for our Tonga High School students, but for the whole youth, for whole future generation of Tonga equipping them in the field of sports. Who knows, probably after 4 or 5 years from here, we have Tongan Olympians.
An amazing venue for the meeting next week. Very happy that it has come to this stage. It has a lot of space, and I'm sure that the leaders will have a good meeting next week.
A critical part of this year's forum is ensuring that the stories of transformation and resilience are told effectively. Media professionals from across the region have come together for intensive training, focusing on the skills needed to cover the forum with depth and accuracy.
When we are in a press conference, it doesn't matter whether you have been in the media for 10 or 20 years, it's all about coming up with a very good question and have the moment in time to ask to the leaders.
There's no better time to do it than, the regional summit, which Tonga will host next week. In all the different Pacific communities, there's always respect for elected leaders. So, but there's also the need for elected leaders to be held accountable to their people, and this is where local journalists come in.
The spirit of resilience is deeply embedded in the people of Tonga. We spoke with community leaders Sami Fivaliaki and Fekita Utoikamanu, who shared their insights on how Tonga embodies the theme of transformative resilience Pacifici.
And Tonga, of course, is one of the most vulnerable countries to natural disasters. And so the theme of the 53rd Pacific Island Forum leaders on resilience and building back better now.
If you come to Tonga, Tonga beautiful is us, it's the people. We don't have much resorts or anything like a mountain or waterfalls, but our people, that's the natural beauty of the island, is our heart. And this one thing is very important in economic countries, first world country, is food, water, and the roof overhead. We all have it here in Tonga. We're born to be already retired before we're born, because we already have family lands, we have a house, we have everything. We never run out of food. Fish is in the ocean, it's unlimited supply.
Cultural heritage plays a pivotal role in the Pacific, and Tonga is no exception. Today, we shine a spotlight on the role of Oceanian women who are at the forefront of preserving our cultural identity, and the hine moana, a traditional waka that symbolizes our connection to the ocean.
Na folau mai amau tolu na ia ka wek waka i tokotol. Ai ko au pena taki mai ai. Pe hayai mo tahine ha moa ta ko fofua ek waka i ha moa. Pe hayai mo tahine ta me no sila ko fofua ek waka i fefine ki he ka Maori.
Not a lot of people are taken in with the concept of why should we go on a kalia, why should we go on a waka when we already have bigger, faster motorboats, we have a ferry, we have all this and that. But it's not just that, it's the values that bring as well what we bring, what our ancestors with resilience, right? Within these Pacific Islands, we talk about sustainability, we talk about how much climate change has affected us because we're the front leaders of this climate change. We get affected first before all these huge continents have any impact of what climate change is. As it takes a village, to raise a child, and it takes a community, a country to restore, revive, and awaken this traditional knowledge that we have. We have it, we all know it. It's how you wear your ta'abala. It's how you present in front of your parents, We still carry our culture strong in that sense, right? But it's also a little bit more in attaching these traditional voyaging sustainable values as well. So you use that in attaining to look We look to the past in order to move forward in the future.
We also look forward to the arrival of the Utonialo, which, though delayed, carries with it the spirit of unity and resilience.
Hello, my name is Lieta Sokai. I'm a crew member for the Utonialo. The Utonialo Trust houses Fiji's traditional waka of the same name, and on Sunday morning we're supposed to sail over to Tonga in what we're calling our Sautu voyage, Moana Oemelino. Our aim is to make it there in time for the PIF's leaders meeting 53. We're there to promote clean oceans, reconnecting with our heritage, and a message of peace in the Pacific.
As we look back on the history of the Pacific Islands Forum, we remember the contributions of Tonga's own Mahetopo Niua, the first Secretary General of the Forum.
resilience here in Nuku'alofa. Yesterday it was understood that there was a downpour the whole day, and the Tonga was shook with an earthquake of a magnitude 6.8 yesterday at a depth of 108 kilometers. However, the Tonga Meteorological Office has confirmed that there was no tsunami threat, and there was also no damages recorded from this earthquake that shook Tonga to the afternoon hours of yesterday. The press conference for this morning is a live broadcast on radio and the television in Tonga, also the Facebook page of Tonga Broadcasting Commission, Tonga Broadcasting live streaming, which can be accessed by all the members here in Tonga and also from overseas. However, I'm Malia Kutenbell, and I will be bringing you the live broadcast from the Noa Hotel here in Nuku'alofa of the press conference with the media and the United Nations of the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres. He will be arriving shortly and will be joining us for this live broadcast. There are questions. I understand that most of the media here have questions to ask him, and this is a great opportunity for the local media as well to be asking him questions that they think is relevant to Tonga's situation, especially aligning with this year's theme of transformative resilient Pacific, build better now, which is the theme for this year that is hosted by the Tongan government for the Forum Leaders meeting. Joining us here are all the member states of the forum countries, but here this morning the media representatives from all the countries in the Pacific, because of the significance of the United Nations and the cooperation or partnership that they have with each member states of the forum family. However, as we understand that the United Nations Secretary General will be arriving shortly here at the Noa Hotel, and the Radio and Television Tonga is very much delighted to bring you a live broadcast of the press conference from the Noa Hotel with the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres. As mentioned earlier, he is 75 years of age, as he was born on 30th of April 1949, and he is from Portugal, as he was serving as the Prime Minister of Portugal from 1995 to 2002. So Antonio Guterres is a political figure himself, and him being here in Tonga is a wonderful opportunity for the leaders gathered here in Nuku'alofa for the 53rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders meeting to engage with him in a talanoa and also a discussions on what matters most to Tonga and the Pacific, especially around areas of climate change, which has been an issue that is ongoing in the Pacific countries, and as mentioned by the president of Azerbaijan, this is the country that will be hosting COP29, or the World Conference on Climate Change this year, is Azerbaijan, which Mukhtar Babayev says is very significant because him being here in Tonga and his presence alone highlights the significance of the voice of the leaders of the Pacific as they sound the plea for a transformative resilient Pacific because of the impacts of climate change that they have been facing over the years. And so as Tonga is still grappling with the impacts of the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai natural volcanic eruption that occurred in 2022, which occurred 2 years ago, and very much there are still families that are still having the impacts. There are still families that are faced with the effects of housing issues, and there are still people that are traumatized, which comes around the mental health impacts of these families since the 2022 Tonga by volcanic eruption and the tsunami that was generated by this eruption, which was first time for Tongans here, as the eruption brought forth volcanic ash, which was faced by many of the families and the homes here in Tongatapu and Eua and Ha'apai, and it was difficult for them to cope with this, being the first time to experience such an event here in Tonga. However, Tonga has showed resilience 2 years on from this disaster. However, we are still awaiting the arrival of the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, where he will be joining us shortly with the other medias here in the room, from Fiji, Tuvalu, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Kiribati, and also from Australia, New Zealand, and other Pacific countries, as well as the media from the delegation of the United Nations, where they were part of the delegation that came with the United Nations Secretary General, arriving in on Saturday to be a part of the programs here in Tonga for the Forum Leaders Meeting. This is the 53rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting, and it is a privilege for all the leaders from the Pacific to be able to have the Secretary General of the United Nations join them as in their discussions and the Talanoa sessions, and to also have him experience what resilience really means for Tonga and the Pacific countries, as he had to witness that yesterday in Kolonga, where he had a site visit to one of the villages in the Eastern District that is very much affected from sea level rise, where he says that a foreshore is not enough to address the impacts of sea level rise in Kolonga. However, he will be joining us shortly, and this is live broadcast on radio Tonga 1 and 2, as well as television Tonga, and also Facebook page Tonga Broadcasting live streaming. As we're awaiting the arrival of the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, we are here with all the foreign media, which will be asking questions to the United Nations Secretary General, and also Tonga Broadcasting Commission will have the opportunity to ask questions to His Excellency Antonio Guterres as well. It will be interesting for Tonga and the foreign media here at the Talanoa Hotel to hear from the United Nations Secretary General, who will be joining us shortly. But he was at a site meeting at the Tonga High School Indoor Stadium, and will be arriving shortly to join us. And it will be interesting to hear the questions that these journalists have to ask the Secretary General of the United Nations himself, Mr. Antonio Guterres, who is coming in all the way from New York in the United States. He is from Portugal, so I understand that he speaks Portuguese as well, as that is his nationality and that is his birth country. And it will be very much interesting to broadcast live the types of questions and response that we'll be having to hear from the United Nations Secretary General, who will be joining us shortly here at the live broadcast from the Noa Hotel. I understand that there are a lot of journalists here from New Zealand, Australia, also the Pacific countries, because this is very significant not only for Tonga but also for the forum, as it is the first time for a United Nations Secretary General to be joining the Forum Leaders meeting, and his presence here in Tonga highlights his commitment to fighting against climate change, which is aligned with the theme for this year, Transformative, Resilient Pasifiki, Build Better Now. However, it is understood that the Forum Leaders meeting, or the Pacific Island Forum Leaders meeting, was established in 1971 as a way for leaders to discuss issues that is common in the Pacific. And so since 1971 to 2024, no Secretary General of the United Nations has ever participated or took part in a Forum Leaders meeting before, until this year, 2024, with the presence of the United Nations Secretary General here in Tonga for the 53rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders meeting, which is hosted by the government of Tonga. Last year, the Forum Leaders meeting was being hosted by the Cook Islands, and before that, in 2022, was hosted by Fiji. However, it is understood that it has been more than 10 years, or approximately 16 or 17 years, since Tonga hosted the last Forum Leaders meeting. And so with the Forum meeting, it is usually rotates around all the 18 member states of the Forum. So it is understood that the Solomon Islands will be hosting next year's Forum Leaders meeting, which is the 54th Pacific Island Forum Leaders meeting. And it is an annual event where all the leaders get together and discuss common issues in the Pacific. And I understand that this year will be on maritime security, and that the Prime Minister, Honourable Huakawa Miliku, has made it clear that there are two other issues that are not really prioritized, but he is prioritizing for this year, which is health and education, which aligns with the theme for this year, because he wants the schools to be better resilient when they are facing climate change impacts, and also the health system, because Tonga has learned from the impacts of COVID-19 that they experienced in 2022 with the health system that was affected the most, or very much, from COVID-19 here in Tonga. And also schools that need to build back better after a cyclone or a tsunami or an earthquake, also, as well as a volcanic eruption, because in most cases these schools are very much affected, and the classrooms as well. So they need to build better now, following a natural disaster. So the Prime Minister says that these are the two key areas that he will be focusing on for this year, as he has now taken on the role of the chairman of the Pacific Island Forum Leaders meeting for this year. He is taking up the role of chairman of the forum from the previous chairman, who was Mark Brown, the Prime Minister of the Cook Islands. Yesterday, at the official opening of the Forum Leaders Meeting here in Tonga, the previous or incumbent chairman of the Forum Leaders Meeting, Honourable Mark Brown of the Cook Islands, said that he looks forward to Tonga's leadership with Honourable Huaka Meiliku at the helm, and also with his leadership in the Troika, which is made up of 3 countries in the Forum family, and Fiji is now exiting the Troika and is no longer a member of the Troika, as now Solomon Islands is joining in because they will be the next to host the next forum, which is next year, and Tonga is currently hosting the forum, so the Honourable Prime Minister Huaka Meiliku is the chair, and the Cook Islands was the former chair, so this makes up the Troika, the members of the Troika for the forum as of now. However, we are still awaiting the arrival of the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, who is here all the way from New York City in the United States of America. His presence here alone highlights the significance and his commitment to building a transformative, resilient Pacific, not only for Tonga, but also for the Pacific countries, especially the Pacific countries that are members of the forum. As we are awaiting his arrival, the Prime Minister of Tonga and some leaders from the forum were expected to take part in a Pacific Forum mission to New Caledonia, and because New Caledonia is a territory of Coral's night that was held later that evening on Sunday. However, yesterday he took part at the official opening of the Forum Leaders Meeting 53rd, which is being hosted by Tonga here at the heart of Nuku'alofa. Arriving shortly joining us shortly will be His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, as he was currently in a side meeting at the Tonga High School Indoor Sports Complex, which held the official opening ceremony of the 53rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting yesterday at Tonga High School Indoor Stadium. However, he will be here, and we are joined here this afternoon by foreign media from across the Pacific, as well as from New Zealand, Australia media, and also local media, but also joining us here this afternoon the media from the United Nations, because the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, who will be here shortly for the press conference this morning. However, as mentioned earlier, he has been taking part or participating in various community, especially in the coastal communities, because of the importance of resilience here in Nuku'alofa. Yesterday, it was understood that there was a downpour the whole day, and the Tonga was shook with an earthquake of a magnitude 6.8 yesterday at a depth of 100. Tahawa tol. Testing. Okay, ko mau pa ko smega. Kamata? Okay, you please. Malo pito pia olie, pia malo la mari ho e ki me lele ai tonga kotoa pe. Pe veke tali lele ki motor ki he houani aya koe whamafolanga tonu atu ai polo kalama koe a me he hotele tanoa. Aya koe polo kalama ini ai kau whaingongo, pe koe whatahama ke hene kau whaingongo, pe mo e skeritale seniale koe ai kau tahinga i pule anga whakatahataha. Koe fofataimi fok eni ke i tongani ai Skritale seniale koe kau tahai ngai pule anga whatahataha pe koe United Nations aya koe mata pule koe ni pe koe tangata ko eni ko Antonio Guterres. Ko ni itongani foki koe fuafuatai mea ikai ki ngata pen i he ene kamai koe ki tongani ka koe fuafuatai mea ki hataki pe koe taki koe ni ngahi whanua whatahataha mamani kene kau mai ki he whataanga i kau taki o Pasifiki pe koia uiloa i he lefa Piritania koe Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting aia koe makamaile ni ki tongani ke hiko ki nau tolo o ku nau tataki ko ia ai whataanga koe ni no ni mga fulma tolo e kautake Pasifiki pea o ku mea tonu ai tangata ko e ni ko Antonio Guterres mei he kautaha ko ia ai ngahi pule anga whatahataha. Mai rupai whoki ko ia ai wā ngā ue whinga ake ni a Tonga pea moe kautaha ngai pule anga whatahataha mahino pe wai ngahi waa ai iu e nā i Tonga ni o hangi ko ia koe UNICEF moe UNDP ai koe ngahi waa ngau eni ki he longa i whanau koe waa ngau e ko ia ki he tupu o tolahi ko ia a mamani. Pea koe ngahi whinga ake le eni i he Whima o koe ke toi wāo whingi whinga aki a Tongani me kautaha koe ni ngahi pule anga whātātaha. Ka gehu mahino o ku tālu ai to uta Antonio Guterres i Tongani mo ni kawa tu ki ngahi polo kalama mahu inga. O hangi koe a ko aniawhi na ni kawa tu ki he polo kalama whakawa koe ni ai whātaanga forum koe a i Tongani ai anai me ai koe a tamapiri skalau ni tu poto a ulka lala. Na ni toi kawa tu whoki ki hono whailunga i koe kamata hano ngai aki ai mea ngau e whainu pōni koe ni uiloa i he lea whapirita koe reader i Tonga niani nai whahoko ni i he Commission for Mafola lea Tonga a niawhi i he whenga ak waawhi koe ia pia moe waa wakai matangi a Tonga. Koe niawhi whoki i he whiawhi koe niawhi nā ni toi kaunt whoki ki he polo kalama eni o ahi tonu ki he tahanga kolo koe ni i he wahe hahake ai ko kolonga mo manuka pe hiko e nā tuu lawe ngofua ko ia ki he ngahi taau koe ni mei he wheliri waki o ea tau te whito ni ki he hake ko ia ai tahilahi pea wesia e nau kere kere mei heni ai ana ane wakai tonu ai pea ana ane pe he o ku kehe penga heli pote ko ia ku tuku atu kia ki nau tolu ka ko ane mea koe i Tongani o wakai tonu ke ngahi whatamaki ko e ni o kune malawai ke lipoti i ane whokiat ko ia ki he ulu ofisi koe ni o ku haumiai i New York i Amerika. Malawa ke ne o atu ai le o tonu na ane nui wakai tonu koe ki ai i Tongani. Ke he koe polo kalama whamawholanga tonu koe ni o ku whai ai tatari ki he Sekretari Seniale koe kau taha i pule anga whātātaha Antonio Guterres ke ne mea mai i he pongpongini ke kau whātaha me kau whaingongo i he whaleni. Aia koe kau whaingongo tō lahi eni mei he ngai whunua koe Pasifiki koe hi koe whataha anga forum o ku lolotonga whahoko i Nukalofani pea koe kau whaingongo eni mei fisi ko tu walu Vanuatu o Motu Solomone kai pehe fuki ki he kau whaingongo eni mei Australia New Zealand pehe fuki ki he kautaha ai ngahi pule anga whataha pe koe iuena koe hi koe whataha koe ai kau whaingongo pea mai Sekretari Seniale koe ai iuena. Ka kei koe polo kalama whamawhalanga tōna koe ni o ku whai a whingai aki. Pea moe kautaha koe ni ai ngahi whunua whatataha koe ai pule anga pe United Nations. Pea e hoka toai a hana whamawhalanga toi polo kalamani i he lea Whapritania ki tau kāinga koe mei tu a pule anga. Good morning and welcome to our listeners and viewers online from overseas. This is Radio Tonga, having a live broadcast from the United Nations Secretary General press conference right here at Tanoa Hotel in Nuku'alofa. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, this is the first time for Guterres to be in Tonga, and not only in Tonga but also to be a part of the Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting. The Secretary General of the United Nations has never been to any forum meeting of the Pacific leaders. However, this year is very unique as Tonga is hosting the 53rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting here in Nuku'alofa, and the United Nations Secretary General is here in Nuku'alofa for the forum. So this is the first time for him to be in Tonga, and also the first time for a leader of the United Nations to be a part of the Forum Leaders Meeting. Antonio Guterres is 75 years of age. and was a Portuguese politician and diplomat. He served as a Portuguese politician and a diplomat from the years 1995 to 2002, when he became the Prime Minister of Portugal. He went to the Instituto Superior Técnico, also the University of Lisbon in Portugal. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, is in Tonga for the former 53rd Pacific Islander Forum Leaders meeting here in Nuku'alofa, and is a very unique, historical experience for Tonga to have the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres here in Nuku'alofa. Antonio Guterres has, ever since his arrival in Tonga, he has been in various programs, especially in terms of climate change, because of the theme of the 53rd Pacific Islander Forum Leaders meeting for this year, which is a transformative, resilient Pacific, build better now. Yesterday, he took part in the launching of the radar weather installation, which is a modern instrument in partnership with the Tonga Met Office here in Tonga. And this instrument is very useful for Tonga in terms of weather temperatures and weather events that will be useful for the Tonga Meteorological Office. He also launched a booklet, which is a handbook for the children to better understand the terms regarding what they need to do when there is an event, such as a natural hazard, such as a tsunami warning, because yesterday the students of the government middle school of Fasi Moyafi was expected to be or engage in a tsunami drill, but because of the bad weather yesterday, it was cancelled. And however, the plan for the tsunami drill panelists still continued yesterday, despite the downpour that Tonga experienced yesterday, and also the students were able to be or engage in a question and answer discussion with the United Nations Secretary General yesterday at the Tonga Broadcasting Commission's studio. However, Antonio Guterres will be arriving shortly here at the Noa Hotel, where Radio Tonga and the Television Tonga will be bringing you a live broadcast from the press conference with the United Nations Secretary General. Here at the Noa Hotel are various journalists from across the Pacific because of the Pacific Islander Forum Leaders meeting 53rd, which is being currently held here in Nuku'alofa. The official opening was held yesterday, that was opened by His Royal Highness Crown Prince Tupoto'a Ulukalala. And the United Nations Secretary General was there and gave a remarkable speech on climate change and also the theme for this year's Forum Leaders meeting. Antonio Guterres was also at Kolonga yesterday evening as a site visit to one of the areas in the Eastern District that is very much affected from sea level rise, which is Kolonga and Manuka in the Eastern District, where he got to witness firsthand the experiences and the challenges that the people of Kolonga and Manuka face from the sea level rise in their villages. As such, he says that the report he has been receiving in the United Nations is not enough compared to him witnessing firsthand the experience and the challenges that are being faced by the people in these two villages. Hahake, or the Eastern District, is very well known for sea level rise, and he says that foreshore is not enough for the impacts that they are facing currently. And he says that when he goes back to the headquarters of the United Nations back at New York City, he will be able to report directly on what he has witnessed here in Tonga, especially with the site visits that he has been engaging on in the communities. Later this afternoon, he will also be having a site visit to Ha'atafu, and this is one of the areas that was very much affected from the tsunami that was generated by the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcanic eruption in 2022, and this is the first time ever for Tonga to experience such a volcanic eruption, as they have never experienced such an event. Tonga is usually experiencing cyclones, and over the years they have been faced with Cyclone Gita, Cyclone Serai, Cyclone Harold, and other cyclones, but it was a shock to the whole of Tonga, and will be an experience that will never be lost from the people who was really affected, especially those living in the coastal areas such as islands in Ha'apai, and it was very much affected from the tsunami generated by the volcanic eruption Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai 2 years ago. 2 years on, there are still families in the communities that are still faced with housing issues, but at the moment the government is doing their best to address this issue. However, the press conference this afternoon or this morning with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, will be around issues on climate change, resilience, and will align with the theme for this year's Pacific Island Families meeting, which is the purpose of him being here in Tonga this week. It is understood that Guterres arrived in Tonga on a Saturday, and he took part in the programs that was held here in preparation for the opening of the Families meeting on Monday, which was yesterday. And so on Saturday, he had joined leaders of the Pacific at the World Agricultural Show, which was opened by His Royal Highness Crown Prince Tupotoa Ukalala. He also joined the church service that was held on Sunday at the Centenary Church of the Free Wesleyan Church in Nuku'alofa. That was followed by a lunch, and also the One Tonga Corals Night that was held later that evening on Sunday. However, yesterday he took part at the official opening of the Forum Leaders Meeting 53rd, which is being hosted by Tonga here at the heart of Nuku'alofa. Arriving shortly joining us shortly will be His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, as he was currently in a side meeting at the Tonga High School Indoor Sports Complex, which held the official opening ceremony of the 53rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting yesterday at Tonga High School Indoor Stadium. However, he will be here, and we are joined here this afternoon by foreign media from across the Pacific, as well as from New Zealand, Australia media, and also local media, but also joining us here this afternoon the media from the United Nations, because the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, who will be here shortly for the press conference this morning. However, as mentioned earlier, he has been taking part or participating in various community, especially in the coastal communities, because of the importance of resilience here in Nuku'alofa. Yesterday, it was understood that there was a downpour the whole day, and the Tonga was shook with an earthquake of a magnitude 6.8.
Expect at least 15 centimeters of additional sea level rise by mid-century and more than 30 days per year of coastal flooding in some places. Distinguished members of the media, today's reports show that the average rate of sea level rise has more than doubled since the 90s. But the doubling in speed shows that the phenomenon is accelerating in an unusual and uncontrolled way. Global mean sea level has already risen over 10 centimeters since 1993. It is, as I said, worse in the Pacific, with in some locations exceeding 15 centimeters. Emerging science suggests that the 2-degree temperature rise could potentially lead to the loss of almost all the Greenland ice sheet and much of the West Antarctica ice sheet. This would mean condemning future generations to unstoppable sea level rise up to 20 meters over a period of millennia. But at 3 degrees of warming, our current trajectory, the rise in sea level would happen much more quickly over centuries. That spells disaster, wide-ranging and brutal impacts coming far thicker and faster than we can adapt to them, destroying entire coastal communities. Can you imagine the impact on this beautiful capital city of Nuku'alofa? But what happens in Tonga did not start in Tonga, and it doesn't end here. Surging seas are coming for us all, together with the devastation of fishing, tourism, and the blue economy. Across the world, around 1 billion people live in coastal areas, from low-lying islands to megacities, from tropical agricultural deltas to Arctic communities. Coastal megacities, including Dhaka, Los Angeles, Mumbai, Lagos, and Shanghai, are threatened by our swelling ocean. Rising seas will increase the frequency of extreme events like coastal floods. If global temperatures rise by 2.5 degrees, that frequency could increase from once in 100 years to once in 5 years by the end of this century. Without new adaptation and protection measures, economic damage from coastal flooding could amount to trillions of dollars. Around 1 meter of future sea level rise is already locked in, but its future scale, pace, and impact are not. That depends on decisions we take now. Global leaders must step up to drastically slash global emissions, to lead a fast and fair phase-out of fossil fuels, and to massively boost climate adaptation investments to protect people from present and future risks. Only by limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius do we have a fighting chance of preventing the irreversible collapse of the Greenland and West Antarctica ice sheets and the catastrophes that accompany them. That means cutting global emissions by 43% compared to 2019 levels by 2030 and 60% by 2035. We need governments to honour the promise made at COP28 and deliver new national climate action plans or national determined contributions by next year. And this must be aligned with 1.5 degree limit and cover all emissions and the whole economy. They must put the world on track to phase out fossil fuels fast and fairly, including in new coal power projects and new oil and gas expansion areas. And they must keep the promises made at COP28 to triple renewables capacity, double energy efficiency, and end deforestation by 2030. The G20 the biggest emitters, with the greatest capacity and responsibility to lead, must be out in front. And the world must massively increase finance and support for vulnerable countries. We need a surge in funds to deal with the surging seas. At COP29, countries must agree to boost innovative financing and a strong new finance goal. And developed countries must deliver on their finance commitments, including the commitment to double adaptation funding to at least 40 billion a year by 2025. And we need significant contributions to the new Loss and Damage Fund as a step towards climate justice in support of vulnerable countries like the Pacific Islands. And the same applies to the Pacific initiative that was announced once again during this summit of a fund, a Pacific fund to protect the Pacific Islands. Finally, we need to protect every person on Earth with an early warning system by 2027 that makes building up countries' data capacities to improve decision-making on adaptation and coastal planning. Dear members of the media, the world must look to the Pacific and listen to science. This is a crazy situation. Rising seas are a crisis entirely of humanity's making, a crisis that will soon swell to an almost unimaginable scale with no lifeboat to take us back to safety. But if we save the Pacific, we also save ourselves. The world must act and enter the SOS before it's too late, and I thank you.
We'll let Professor Sullivan.
Good afternoon, dear friends of the media. I thank the Secretary General, the United Nations Secretary General, for his important statement and for issuing a global SOS on rising sea levels. We at the World Meteorological Organization join with Mr. Guterres, and we are sending a red alert to the world. Climate change has become a global crisis and is the defining challenge that humanity faces. WMO is today launching the State of the Climate in the Southwest Pacific for 2023 report. It shows the impact of climate change and extreme weather on communities, economies, and ecosystems throughout the Southwest Pacific region. Dear all, it is increasingly evident that we are fast running out of the time to turn the tide. The year 2023 was the warmest year on record, and temperature records have continued for much of 2024. But record global temperatures are just part of the much bigger climate challenge. The ocean has taken up more than 90% of the exceeds heat trapped by greenhouse gases and is undergoing change which will be irreversible for centuries to come. Irreversible for centuries to come. Human activities have weakened the capacity of the ocean to sustain and protect us. Because of sea level rise, the ocean is transforming from being a lifelong friend into a growing threat. Sea level rise in the South Pacific is well above the global average, as already stated by UN Secretary General. In much of the Western tropical Pacific, it has been close or near twice the global rate measured since 1993. This can increase the devastating impact from tropical cyclones which regularly impact Pacific islands. Already, we are seeing more coastal flooding, shoreline retreat, saltwater contamination of freshwater supplies, and displacement of coastal communities. Sea surface temperatures have risen 3 times faster than the global average since 1980. In consequence, marine heat waves have approximately doubled in frequency since 1980. They are more intense and are lasting longer. The increasing intensity of marine heat waves has far-reaching implications, from adverse impacts on fish stocks and coral reef resilience to toxic algae blooms and species extinction for most severe and persistent extremes. This has a major impact on ecosystems, economies, and livelihoods in the Pacific, and I'm sure that you are already experiencing this. Ocean acidification is disrupting the marine food chain. Let me speak about early warnings for all. At this stage, I would like to say a very big thank to all of your hosts, the government of Tonga, for your wonderful hospitality of the Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting. The Kingdom of Tonga is one of the many islands on the front line of climate change. It is exposed to hazards such as tropical cyclones and flooding. As we all know, it also suffered a huge volcanic eruption which unleashed a basin-wide tsunami in January 2022 and caused massive injection of water vapor into the Earth's atmosphere. And this affected the global climate. As said by the Secretary General, what happens in Tonga does not stay in Tonga. We live in an interconnected world. The domino effects of the eruption of the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano highlight the need for multi-hazard early warnings against cascading hazards and risks. I am very impressed by the concrete improvements in disaster preparedness that the government of Tonga has made. Also, I am grateful to the Tonga Meteorological Service for its tireless work to save lives. Tonga recently held its National Early Warnings for All workshop and has drafted a roadmap to guide the way forward based on sound multi-hazard early warning system policy. Tonga is an example to follow. Early warning systems inform early action, such as evacuation plans, resource allocation, anticipatory action, and infrastructure reinforcement. We witnessed it firsthand yesterday with the earthquake that struck the region. Accurate information is key for decision making. They are literally a lifeline, but they are available in only 1/3 of small island developing states. Yes, early warnings are only available in 1/3 of the small island states. WMO and our many international partners are seeking to meet the challenge by rolling out the Early Warnings for All campaign so that everyone, everywhere can be protected from life-threatening hazards. We are working hard to help close the gap in basic observing systems that are at the heart of early warnings. WMO also welcomes the Weather Ready Pacific program as part of the International Early Warnings for All initiative. This program has been developed in the Pacific for the Pacific and showcases how regional collaboration and tailored approaches are key for successful implementation of initiatives like Early Warnings for All. In terms of hydrological hazards, let me just brief you that WMO is supporting the development of national state of the climate reports in the Pacific to inform national decision-making and anchor regional efforts. The state of the climate in the Southwest Pacific report shows that overall, 32 reported hydrometeorological hazard events in 2023 led to over 200 fatalities and impacted more than 25 million people in this region. Most of them were storm or flood related. Severe tropical storms Kevin and Judy made landfall on the island nation of Vanuatu within 48 hours of each other in March. No time to recover from Kevin, and the island was again exposed to Judy. This surpasses our imagination. Cyclone Lola, which made landfall in Vanuatu on 24 October, prompted the government of Vanuatu to declare a 6-month state of emergency in the affected provinces, with more than 91,000 people affected. The aftermath of Tropical Cyclone Gabrielle brought significant rainfall, causing major impacts to the eastern North Island of New Zealand in February 2023. Elsewhere in the region, Typhoon Doksuri brought heavy rainfall and flooding to the Philippines in July 2023, claiming at least 45 lives and displacing almost 313,000 people. It is clear that the time for action is now. With this, I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now turn it to questions. We'll start with Associated Press, Charlotte. If we can please have the mic. Okay, please.
Sorry. Is it possible to have a microphone?
Let me grab it.
Yes.
Charlotte Graham from the Associated Press. How frustrated are you by the lack of action from G20 and other developed nations, particularly as they continue to expand oil and gas production?
I'm extremely concerned. G20 countries represent 80% of emissions. And it is obvious that G20 countries represent 80% of emissions. And it is obvious that without a drastic reduction of emissions of all of them, we will not be able to keep the 1.5 degree, and we might risk even go over the 2 degrees, which would be absolutely catastrophic. And there is a dialogue that we need to dismount. Sometimes developed countries say, well, we have already done a program to reduce our emissions, so it's emerging economies that now do the same. And emerging economies say, but you have polluted during decades, and now we also need some margin in relation to the development of our country. And if we count by consumption instead of by production, then the emissions in developed countries are much higher. Now, this kind of dialogue leads nowhere. We cannot go on blaming each other. We absolutely need all G20 countries to come together to use the best technologies available within the G20, to use the financial resources that exist within the G20 and in multilateral development institutions, and to have a concerted global action to have a drastic reduction of emissions until 2030. If that does not happen, we will be in an irreversible situation with absolutely devastating consequences.
Okay, Daniel from The Guardian, please.
Daniel Hurst from Guardian Australia. In a similar vein, Secretary General, you called for a fast and fair phase out of fossil fuels. Is it fair or acceptable for a country like Australia to be continuing to approve new coal and gas projects?
Well, what we say is that we need to have a phase out of fossil fuels that is done through a just transition. And that means that fossil fuels need to be phased out. That, I believe, is today scientific evidence. But obviously the situation of different countries is different. And the justice in the way this is done means that there are different rhythms and there are different ways to do it. But let's have no illusion. Without phase out of fossil fuels, in a fair and just way, there is no way we can keep the 1.5 degrees alive.
Allow Pacific Media Network.
Antonio Guterres. Tuvalu are hoping to have leaders agree to a sea level rise declaration by the end of the week and for it to be presented at the UNGA later next month. Do you think PIF and the General Assembly should support the declaration? And also, how are your plans for a pledging conference on climate change and how's it coming about? I understand the target is $500 million.
I have a lot of confidence in the determination of Pacific Islands to speak loud and clear in the next General Assembly. We have seen that with sea level rise, the impact is particularly dramatic in Pacific Islands. And Pacific Islands do not contribute to climate change. So they have a moral authority to ask those that are creating this and accelerating the sea level rise to reverse this trend. And we count on the leadership of Pacific Islands and will be fully supportive of their declaration.
Okay, and finally, we're going to do Tonga Broadcasting Corporation.
From Tonga Broadcasting Commission. I just have a question because you've seen the real impacts of climate change here in Tonga. Are we seeing any technical or financial assistance soon from your office?
I didn't understand.
Technical assistance from the UN.
I am totally committed to mobilize the new capacity that the UN has in the Pacific to support Tonga and to support all islands of the Pacific. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to see the inauguration of a meteorological radar that is part of the first line of protection, and it's financed by essentially by New Zealand. And Tonga will be equipped from now on to have an effective early warning system. So we are very much willing to cooperate with the government of Tonga to strengthen their capacity.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, we're running late and the Secretary General has to leave, but Professor Saulo will stay and answer more questions.
Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. The early signs put in place with our last experience with Hapai, our alarm systems weren't able to detect the eruption. We were told they were mostly only detected by earthquake to alarm a tsunami warning. Do these early warning signs take into account what our experience was with a volcanic eruption?
Okay, so there are different types of hazards, as you well know. You are exposed to many different hazards, and the predictability of these hazards is completely different. It's not the same for a tsunami, it's not the same for an eruption. So what I'm sure that is what is going to be happening here in Tonga and in many other places of the world is that we are trying to put the best science to the services of the people. But eruptions are not easy to predict. The important thing about eruptions is that we need to react on time, and that's the value of an early warning system. Whenever you have something in place, you need to react in a way that you protect the people. So it's not the same thing to forecast a storm, to forecast a tsunami or an eruption. So it's not the scientific part to blame. We have to understand that there are limitations.
Okay, we'll take here Radio New Zealand.
Lewis. I'm from Radio New Zealand. RNZ Pacific is aware that some in the disaster response space feel that the UN disaster response machinery is not as present in the Pacific as it is in other parts of the developing world. How does this match up with your own climate rhetoric in which you use the Pacific, as we've seen today, as an example on the front line?
Okay, I believe that the Pacific region is doing a great job, honestly, in terms of how you gather the capability. I mentioned this during my speech. Of course, it's a very complex area. The islands are too far away one from the other. Small islands are more vulnerable than other places in the world, but I would say that cooperation and collaboration here are working quite well. I would also like to highlight that early warnings for all are being coordinated here through the Weather Ready Pacific initiative that has been developed by the Pacific people for the Pacific people. So there is where we will bring more coordination, and of course we will develop the capabilities at the local level to respond to the local crisis. I would say that compared with other parts of the world, this is an area very exposed, but with increasing levels of capability to gather, contribute, and collaborate.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay.
I've got some more.
I think we're also running a little bit late with your program, so I will cut it there. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Mui ka kato e pea ai polo kalama na e whamawhalanga tōna to me he ho tere tano a I he hauani. Ai a koe whatahama ke he kau whaingongo pea mo e skeritari senyale. Ai kau tahinga pulenga whatahataha Antonio Guterres pea o ku ka kato ia me he ho tere tano a. Kai malo moha mo mea mai, ka mo mea.